Well, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon for those in the East. My name is Sean Woodess, calling from the Verico head office here, and hope you're doing all well, and thanks for logging on to the call this morning. It is our very first actual coaching sessions. For those that you attended, it was just an overview, or anyone that missed the last session, was just a real introduction to the program of the Verico Scalable Success Program that we're going to be running for the next while here. We're very excited about it. Today is, again, as I mentioned before, the first real sales success session we've had, and we're excited about it at Verico. We hope you are too. I mean, sales and marketing really are what we do on a day-to-day basis, and that's what drives our volumes and can really help us grow our business. And today I'm going to start off right away and just get this passed over to our host today is Rupert Whiting. So Rupert, over to you.
Thanks very much, Sean. It's really exciting for us too, so thanks for that. Mike, I've got a colleague of mine, Mike Alpert, on the line. And Mike, I'm just going to ask you to, if you can do the *5 and mute everybody, and I'll unmute myself, and then we won't have some of the noise issues we had last time.
No problem.
Muted.
So hopefully you guys can all hear me now. Mike, I'll ask you just to Skype me and just say that you can hear me. I'm going to assume that you can, and we're going to start on. So hello, everybody. My name is Rupert Whiting, and this is me on the left of the picture, and I show you a picture of me so you can put a face to the name, and I look forward to putting a face to many of your names in the coming weeks. And I note there that I live in Vancouver, BC, and that becomes a little bit relevant later on in the presentation. So hello. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today. As Sean said, it's the start of an exciting time. It's exciting for me personally and for Focal Point because we get to work with some outstanding professionals like yourselves. Now, I say that not as a platitude. I know a couple of Verico mortgage brokers personally. I've known them for a few years, and I'm big fans of them. So if they choose to be members of Verico, that's a great recommendation as far as I'm concerned. I hope that it's an exciting time for you too. Today's the start of a journey together. These calls will give you some tools for business and life that really, honestly, you can use every minute of every day. They'll help provide light when things look dark and momentum when you stall. And, that's kind of the bad news is that you will still stall and you will still feel like you're in the dark hole from time to time. Training and development or not, you're going to hit the buffers. This program is not about avoiding every pitfall, but it will give you tools to get out of the bear traps you get into quickly and without losing the momentum that's so critical in this business. So my promise to you is that what we cover here isn't going to get rid of all your problems, but we will, let's say, help you accumulate a better class of problem. I hope that's okay with you. Not no problems, just better ones to deal with. So, and also, is there anybody on this call who doesn't have anything else better that they could be doing right now? Not better, anything else that they could be doing right now? Of course not. We've all got huge to-do lists, but you've chosen to invest your time right now in this. So my other promise to you is that if you listen well, if you take notes, if you ask questions, and if you take action, and that's key, if you take action, I guarantee you this is the best possible use of the next 60 minutes. And at the end of this session, you're going to have an applicable framework to better explain the world of success and mediocrity that you see around you, and to be able to make appropriate changes. And I say mediocrity very deliberately because the sad fact of life is really that the corollary of success is not failure, it's to accept what you did achieve. In most cases, that's mediocrity. And the acceptance of what you do achieve, not what you can achieve, is at the root of most of our poor results. So we're all about increasing the results that we get and taking us from what we do achieve right now to what we could achieve. Let's take a quick look at the agenda for today. We've done the welcome. We're moving shortly on into the intros. These lay the foundations for a culture of success, and they're prerequisites for successful businesses or a successful career in any field. And I know that you guys, as passionate mortgage agents and mortgage brokers, are going to see the immediate relevance of what I'm talking about today in your business. Please feel free to ask questions in the box on the right. Mike and Pin will keep an eye on the incoming questions. And Mike, please stop me if there's a pressing question. Otherwise, we'll keep them to the end. So fire away with your toughest questions. Anything that doesn't resonate with you, stick a question in there. And one point of admin as well, it would be really great when you take notes. in freehand. Let's not use iPads or laptops or whatever. Taking notes in freehand, it's been shown in adult learning, really helps retention. If you can use color, all the better. So don't sit there staring at the screen and promise yourself that you'll download the stuff tomorrow and print it off. A, tomorrow never comes, and B, that's a too passive a way of being involved in your own education. So I hope you're excited and ready. Let's go. Before we go on, I need you to understand, though, that this applies whether you're a broker member or whether you're an agent. And you can listen to this from several different ways. Brokers, you can listen out as someone trying to solve team issues in your office or to personally deal with bigger, broader business issues. Or you can listen for yourself as an originator and your behaviors and how that shows up in your leadership, but also with a view to coaching the people in your team. As an agent, I want you to listen from a point of view of impacting your personal behaviors, but also from gaining an understanding of the behaviors of others and how you might then impact those. And the point I want to make is that whether you're successful right now or not, whether you're a broker or an agent, a rookie or a retiree, there's something in what follows that will be directly applicable for you. And this goes for all the sessions that we're going to go through in this series. And I want you to listen out for the language that we use and the key phrases that I bring up time and time again. I suggest that you adopt this vernacular within the Verico family and in your offices, because it provides shorthand communication to get to the nub of the problem. And that speeds up progress incredibly, and we're all about fast progress. Speedy progress is good. So pens to hand, lots of paper. Let's start. And I want you to think about this business that I'm about to describe. I'm not going to put a slide up. I just want you to think about this. This business is sales-based, but it's technically demanding. In other words, people in this business have two jobs. They have sales and they have a technical delivery job. The people in this industry have to sell people before they can even get a chance to demonstrate their technical skills. This industry isn't overly well understood or appreciated by people who often need it the most. So it's underutilized, despite the fact that most people who do use it come back time and time again and love it. It's changing rapidly, and just keeping up with developments is a part-time job in and of itself. And it has high headline margins, but there's a low-ish barrier to entry compared to many professional disciplines, so it looks really attractive to a lot of people. So lots of people try and make it their career. Competition is stiff, but turnover is really high. I'll ask you to consider what industry that sounds like. And you probably think it sounds like your industry, but actually it describes mine as a business coach. And this slide here is some of my colleagues at a recent convention that we were at, discussing exactly the same challenges that you guys face on a day-to-day basis. Things like sales, marketing, interpersonal skills, business management, office management, so forth. And that's important, because what we're about to cover the success of our franchise, and I know that you guys are not a franchise, but a commonly branded set of independent professionals. We're number one in our sector, and we believe that this, what we're going to cover today, particularly, is the foundations of our success. The impacts are really profound, and I want you to know that the close correlation between the two businesses is really significant here. So, the first and most, let's get on with some content. The first and most fundamental of all the success models is the one called the law of belief. And it's covered in Brian Tracy's book here called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. It's also known, and what it says is, whatever you believe, with feeling or conviction, and that's really what a belief is. It's when you really, really believe it, it becomes your reality. And we also call it the iceberg model, or the iceberg concept. And what it says is that much as 90% of an iceberg lies beneath the water, 90% of the components of success lie out of sight to the observer. We just look at what people have got and think that it materialized. What looks small is actually massive. What looks like something that we can grasp is actually much bigger than we can possibly fathom. But instead of seeing a block of ice in the water, in the case of success, what we really see is results. Why is this important to understand? Well, what happens most of the time is we look at the results that someone else gets and we try and recreate them. But when we put our results in the water, they sink. We end up with just 10% of the results that they have. We try and recreate that iceberg, put it in the water, and we haven't got the other 90% there. We haven't built the foundations to keep it afloat. Trying to recreate the results of somebody who's more successful than us without mimicking the hidden 90% of what created it is frustrating, to say the least. Golfers tell me I'm wrong. Artists tell me I'm wrong. It's really difficult to copy what somebody else has mastered. And parents tell me I'm wrong. Trying to get results without understanding how they're created is really inefficient and generally unsuccessful. So let's understand what creates results. Well, actions create results. And the funny thing about action is that, like the first few feet of an iceberg, if you get close enough to someone's end results, you can often see the actions that it took. So if you are in the office with somebody who's super successful, or indeed you're super successful, you know what actions you took to get there. But don't be fooled. There are physical actions and there are nuances of exactly what was done. So, for instance, a successful agent might smile at their client and shake them firmly by the hand, and it's all in the greeting and how well they set up that initial first impression. Another agent might do exactly the same action, shake hands, smile, but it's a snake smile and their eyes are full of fear. So it's the same action, but the nuances are fundamentally different. And where that would be, what drives the nuances is what drives the specific actions. And those are the thoughts that the individual is having at the moment or just prior to taking the action. For the purposes of time, in this area over here on the right-hand side, you can put thoughts, feelings, emotions, whatever. For the time being, we're going to say, we're going to talk about thoughts. There's some more reading if you want to do about the interaction in your brain between thoughts, feelings, and emotions that drive action. But they say emotion creates motion, creates actions. But thoughts, for the purposes of this presentation, thoughts, feelings, and emotions are all going to be considered under thoughts. And it reminds me of a country and western song, What Was I Thinking by Dierks Bentley. I don't know if many of you know it. There's a line in it, I know what I was feeling, but what was I thinking? And it's a story of a young man who basically lets his hormones get the better of him. His actions are instinctive and spontaneous, and he gets into some pretty big trouble as a result of it. But for the purposes of our session today, at least he's asking the important second-level question. What was I thinking, or what were they thinking that drove the actions that drove the results? What caused me to feel genuine warmth for that couple when they walked into my office? And these are great questions if you're a broker or somebody who's looking after other agents and you're trying to get them to your level of success. You have to understand exactly what it was that you were thinking at the point that you took the specific action. Going on, though, what creates those thoughts and those emotions? And it's beliefs. Excuse me, it's being quick. If you believe that you're a rookie or inexperienced, then you're starting off on completely different trajectories and you're going to get completely different results. One person, let's say she thinks she's the bee's knees or knows she's the bee's knees in terms of being I hope that's not an English expression, i.e. she's very, very confident in her abilities as an agent. So she shakes the prospect warmly by the hand, looks them in the eye and speaks clearly. In that moment, she starts to win their trust. She builds upon it, and she ends up gaining the commission. The other guy, he thinks of himself as a rookie who maybe doesn't have enough experience, and he's like most salespeople, terrified of rejection. His handshake is therefore clammy. His eye contact is furtive or starey, and he does one of two things. He's either going to mumble or he's going to be overly aggressive, used car salesman kind of stuff. And those guys don't often, maybe not never, but don't often get the deal. But I know what you're thinking. You just can't believe that you're the right person for the job. You just can't believe that you've got 5 more years experience than you have. Well, I think the answer to those objections is yes and no. Yes, you can just believe that you're the right person for the job. And how? Well, just by telling yourself that enough times. we as humans are kind of gullible that way. If you just get your physiology right, i.e. hold yourself erect and don't slump and shoulders back and chest out, and tell yourself with conviction, like Brian said, what you believe with conviction, tell yourself with conviction enough times, which might be 100 times a day or 100 times in the car just before the appointment, I'm the right agent for this client. I'm the right agent for this client. I'm the right agent for this client. You say that enough and say that enough, you actually start building up this belief, whether you know, even if you don't start off believing it, if you say it 100 times, this belief actually starts to grow, believe it or not. Believe it, believe it, believe it, believe it. And so you can artificially create beliefs if you know that that's the foundation that you want to build off. But no, going back to the other objection, I can't just believe that I have 5 more years extra experience. No, you're right. You can't just believe you have 5 more years extra experience. But what if you believed, instead of believing that that mattered, you believed that it didn't matter? And let me give you an example. If I'm an agent who went through training 5 or 10 years ago, I would have learned skills for prospecting and how mortgages are sold that are now out of date. And I know that not all of our competition keeps up to date with their training and works hard as a Verico broker would do. So they're using out of date tools. Yesterday, so there's no one in the market more up to date on their training than I am. I am therefore the best person for this couple to be talking to now, because I am only aware of the most up-to-date tools, techniques, rates, structures in the market. I'm not cluttered by 10 years experience. So I can choose to believe that it's actually an advantage for having no experience than not. It's not smoke and mirrors, it's choosing a belief that serves you, and we'll come on to this a little bit later. So to recap, what you believe with conviction or feeling becomes your life. What you believe becomes your thoughts, what your thoughts drive your actions, and your actions drive your results. And I just wanted to be also clear here. When we talk about actions, we're also talking about inaction. So if you think something and therefore you don't act, it's going to have the same level of impact on your results. It'll just have a different impact on your results, if that makes sense. Let's prove this to you. I want you to consider a really crummy result that you've got right now. And it might be a client you didn't close, or a relationship with a colleague, or a lender that's poor, something like that. Pick something that you wish was different. Okay, now consider what actions you took or failed to take that created that situation. When you've at least one action that you know you took that generated a bad result, I want you to think about what it was that drove you to take that action or inaction. What thoughts did you have about the situation that you now see, drove a bad result? And therefore, what belief was it that was driving those thoughts? Have you found maybe the root cause of that problem, that your belief that the client was unsuitable, that the so-and-so is selfish, or I don't know, whatever it is for you. If you hold a belief down here, that's generating the thoughts, it's generating the actions, and it's getting you crummy results. Okay. Now take the opposite of the belief that generated crummy results and just play with it for a while and say, instead of thinking that so-and-so was dumb, stupid, going to be uncooperative, if we think that they are going to be our best ally and our best client or whatever, just play with that. Now what would your thoughts have been? If your thoughts have been that, what would your actions have been? And then maybe what would the results have been? I can give you an example of this. When I started out as a focal point coach, I did my training, and I was told to contact 100 new leads every month. We expect that most people are not able or willing to purchase from us at any one time. So, we kiss a lot of frogs. What I did after so after 4 months, what did I have? I should have had 400 leads in my list. I had about 25. That was my result. What had I done? Well, I'd not done what I was told to do, because I believed that I had a better, more effective system of gathering clients. That was my belief. And it wasn't going so well for me. So I looked at the results that other people were getting. One guy was making 50 times more income than I was. So I looked at what he was doing. I looked at the actions that he was doing, which was touching about 100, 150 people a month. And what did he think? He thought that it was worthwhile, and he thought that that was a way to build a genuine business. And he believed that it could be done and it could be sustained. So I adopted the same belief. I thought the same things, that this was going to be smart for me. I took the same actions, and what were my results? Well, without tooting my own horn, I broke a franchise sales record for the most business landed in a given week. So I used this exercise. I went and had a look at what somebody else was doing. I understood what their belief was, and I adopted that belief myself, and it generated phenomenal results. And you can do this, and you can pull this out every time you want to diagnose a problem or you want to recreate a success. You know, it's all you have to do. Ask yourself, why did I do it? So what did I do, rather? Why did I do it? What was I believing? We're trying to get better by looking at other people, like I said. What did they get? What did they think? What did they believe? And make sure when you're trying to mimic somebody else's results that you ask them, what do you believe is right about this situation? Or what are you thinking when you're picking up the phone to make these phone calls or going to these network meetings? What are the thoughts in your head just before you enter the room? Because that's really where the keys are. There's a saying by Ralph Waldo Emerson to the effect, I can't hear a word you're saying, your actions are speaking so loudly. And the implication of that is that by being really careful of and observing somebody else's actions, you can work out, who they are inside, and by extrapolation, what they believe, just by observing them. But what if there was a shorthand way, rather than taking people out to dinner and coffee and taking hours in their offices to ask them what they believe? What if there was a shorthand way to know what they believed or what their attitude was without even looking at the actions? Well, the great news is that there is such a shortcut. People who are successful believe some common things. And I want to take you through this now. So this is where victor-victim comes in. And by the way, this applies across cultures, ages, genders, and races. It's not specific to anybody. It's universal, and it applies as much in mortgage broking and sales as anywhere else. But like I said just before, I want you to get really engaged here. This is a picture of somebody's desk at our conference. It looks like a schoolroom, but using coloured pens and papers to draw this stuff out is going to make this much more impactful. So I really want you to get a blank sheet of paper now and draw a nice big line right across, horizontally across the middle. And above the line, I want you to draw this fella, Victor, big smiley face, big strong arms. He's our hero, okay? Excuse me. He's a successful guy, and ladies, he's married to a lady called Victoria, and she thinks the same way as Victor does. So if you're a lady or you want to think of this person through the filter of the female persona, then just call him or her Victoria. It works just as well. Now, Victor's a guy who constantly stays ahead of his problems, and he deals with them. He'll tell you that he proves every day that he can solve them, and that's kind of handy because the mnemonic for his attitude that we use is proves. And as I say, I want you to draw him above this horizontal line that you've drawn on your paper. Now let's look at what proves does. He's positive and he's proactive. Every time he comes across a problem, and sorry, I should have said on that line, I want you to write how we deal with problems. So this guy, Victor, has a problem. He's not living in cloud cuckoo land. He's not living on a bed of roses. This guy has got a problem, but his first thought is, let's get positive about this, and let's get proactive about me changing it. He will not stand for waiting around for someone else or something else to change before he tries to impact the situation. Now, he's done a quick assessment. Can I impact this situation or not? Is this one of the, I think it's the serenity prayer, give me the wisdom to know, which I can and which I can't change. But he's already done that. But let's say he says, this is one of these things that I can change, and it's important important that I do change it for, and he's been positive. Another big thing he does is he takes responsibility. He takes responsibility for being in this situation. He doesn't look for other people. He doesn't blame other circumstances. He takes full responsibility for being in this position and for being here. Now, that feels like a heck of a lot of weight for people who are used to deflecting responsibility, but it's the only real place to start, because unless you acknowledge that you got yourself here, when Victor, acknowledges that, he feels like he can get himself up and away. If it's external forces that got you here, then it's external forces that can keep you there. But by taking responsibility for being there in the first place, then those external forces have no more control. Equally, he takes ownership. It's very similar to taking responsibility, but responsibility is saying, hey, I got myself here, and ownership is saying, hey, I'm going to get myself out of here. Remember, we're talking about problems. So ownership is saying, if it's to be, it's down to me. And there's a saying that Brian uses quite a lot, which is the point that somebody matures from being a child to an adult is the point where they take full responsibility and ownership for their life. And we will have seen kids in sort of down at the east end of Vancouver, or in slums elsewhere, who accept that they are where they are, and they take ownership of their own situation, getting out of it. And we've seen pensioners who still expect everything to be done for them, and never taking responsibility and ownership. So it has nothing to do with age, but that is the point when somebody matures, when they take over this responsibility. Victors have a vision, and they have a clear vision generally of where it is that they want to go specific to this problem. I have this problem, and here's how I want it to be better. Very often people have a challenge, and not quite sure what it would look like differently, or how they would want it to be different. And that's incredibly difficult to move forward from if you don't have a vision. So Victor has a vision. He also understands that it's one thing getting out of a bear trap, but it's another thing to get up and away from the bear trap so that you don't fall back into it. So victors have a way of solving their problems so that they can put a code of excellence over it, and they solve their problem. So if you don't have enough leads this month, one way to do it is go out there and hustle and get some leads and network and ask for referrals and do all that things. All that does is defer your problem till next month. Okay? An excellent solution would be to generate a pipeline of leads that solves your problem on an ongoing basis, or for many months, whilst you can generate a more sustainable pipeline. So it's not just about getting up and away from the problem, getting up and out of the problem. It's getting up and away from the problem. That's how Victor deals with it. And so this is a typo here. That shouldn't say scarcity, because that should say below. So my mistake there. This is success. This guy focuses his mind on success and keeps it off failure. He thinks positive thoughts about the future, and it gets him excited. He expects to succeed, and he looks through everything through that filter. Like Victor sees success as his right, and it's just going to happen. The only question is when. So when he finds himself down a dead end, he just turns around and goes and finds himself another route, but keeps his eye on the prize. And this is where the thing of never ever quit. It gets a little bit confusing sometimes. Never quit on the main goal, if that's something you hold dear, but totally always quit on strategies that aren't working, or tactics that aren't working, or routes that you're going down. Feel free to quit on those all the time, but a success-minded person keeps his mind on the vision of success that he has, or she has, and doesn't quit on that end goal, but will keep quitting on things that aren't working along the way. So this is our man Victor. He's a total hero, and things go well for him when he gets a problem, because he's positive, responsible, takes ownership, etc. But that doesn't mean that he never, ever, ever comes across problems. In fact, he will face the same fears, challenges, heartbreaks, disillusionment, whatever that the rest of us do. And let's examine now what happens when Victor turns around at a dead end and stumbles over a tree branch in the dark and falls below the line that you've drawn on the paper. and he becomes a victim. And this guy, he lives below the line. He's got a sad hunchback. He's sort of like slopping along, and everything's just down on him. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and this guy lives below the line, and he just bends to whatever comes his way because he doesn't feel like he can control it. And bends is the mnemonic that we use for victims. Let's take another quick drink. And what does bends blame somebody or something else for being there? It's the fault of his client, his boss, the lender, the seller, the realtor, the dog. You know, I could go on. But who's to blame, really? Excuse me. Well, that's a bit of a trick question, because many of you will have said him or me or whatever. You know, and it's not about blaming anybody. It's not about apportioning blame. A victor takes responsibility of the situation, but he doesn't assume or assign blame, because blame is corrosive and blame is destructive. Responsibility is going to seek to create. Blame just seeks to destroy something and certainly destroy any hope of being proactive about it. So if you find yourself blaming someone or something else, then that's a sign to you, hey, let's get back above the line. How would a victor deal with this? But victims love to blame because, you know, it's somebody else's fault. It can't be their fault, right? And if it isn't their fault, then they've been hard done by, and that makes the situation a little bit easier to live with in the short term. Except that that's a total illusion, and unless you get, or less this victim guy here gets up and above the line and becomes a victor, nothing's going to change about the problem if you stand around pointing fingers at people. The other thing he does is make a lot of excuses. And there's a medical term, I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's called excusitis, and it's the inflammation and overuse of the excuse-making gland. You know, and victors suffer from it pretty much constantly. And I wonder, some of you are saying, well, what's the difference between an excuse and a reason? Because there's lots of really good reasons why I've got problems. And the way that we say it is, an excuse is really easy to identify because there's a big smudge where it was used to fend off responsibility. So here's an example. There might be a reason why an application was rejected by a lender, and it was rejected because it was poorly prepared and it didn't meet the lender's criteria. That's a reason. The paperwork was poorly prepared because I only had an hour to do it because my cat was sick and I had to go to the vet. That would be an excuse. It might sound like a reasonable excuse to some, but it's an excuse nevertheless. And hopefully you can see the huge difference. Excuse me. When you catch yourself and others making excuses, remind yourselves to, come on, let's get above the line. And this is the terminology I talked about before. Let's get above the line. How does a victor deal with this? And it will transform your life, because above the line is full of possibility, it's full of action and progress and movement away from the problems. Life below the line is just wallowing in the problem. The problem won't be changed if you're down there. The client still has a rejected application. But if you get above the line, your approach to the solution is going to be fundamentally different depending on which side of that line that you're on. So get above the line. If you see yourself making excuses, it's a big aha moment for you. Just get above the line. And then negative, these guys. And I love this one. Have you ever wondered why, if you go to your favorite hockey team and a visiting player scores, the stadium goes quiet, apart from the 50 or 100 traveling supporters who go absolutely nuts? You see, the scoring of a goal in and of itself is not inherently a positive or a negative event. It's just positive from your point of view or negative from your point of view. And so when you find yourself feeling negative about a situation, all you do is go find yourself another perspective where you can feel positive about the situation. So, you know, you just be promiscuous, as they say. Be promiscuous with your perspective. You know, it doesn't mean you have to cheer for both sides, but when you concede a goal, when your team concedes a goal, you can celebrate the fact that you've just found a way that your defense can be unpicked, and you can assume the coach is going to work on that on Monday at training, at practice. It's go find yourself another point you can stand on. You can stand and look at this issue from a different perspective, because there's going to be a positive one there somewhere. You know, we don't have enough time on this call to go into all the issues with energy, attracting energy and things, but you guys will know from long experience that misery loves company. Nothing good comes from being in a negative frame of mind. And it is tough. I totally get that. I am not perfect myself. because we find that there's a lot of connection down here below the line. A lot of other people want to be negative with us and absolve themselves of responsibility. So we hang out down here with all the other victims, explaining away reasons why we haven't done what we know that we should do. And so I get that negative is comfortable, and I am it myself from time to time, but I won't stay there. Bad things start to happen if I stay down below the line too much, and I'm sure it's the same with you guys. The D here is for denial. And isn't it true that the easiest way out of a problem is to deny that one even exists? You know, I'll bet everybody on this call is denying that they have a problem with at least one area, because it's what humans do. And it may be for a very good reason. It may be that your plate is already full of much bigger problems, and so by pretending or ignoring that you've got another problem that's of smaller in magnitude, it frees you up to have scope to deal with these other ones. But it can become habitual, and it can become a coping mechanism. And that mechanism doesn't work well as the stakes rise. So once you acknowledge you've got a problem, you do have a hope of changing the actions. But ostrich syndrome, head in the sand time, is only appropriate for minor things. And I literally have seen businesses go under as a result of denial. And so it's really powerful if used incorrectly. It's powerful if used correctly because it can help you with time management. But if you deny in the wrong way, you could be in trouble. And then scarcity, that's where it should be. Excellent. There's just too many agents and not enough clients. How's about that as a scarcity sort of statement in your business? Well, maybe, but before you subscribe to that way of thinking, maybe we should go ask the offices or the region's top performing agent, because they seem to find a steady stream of clients, and it certainly isn't by thinking that there aren't enough of them. So, you know, I'll grant you, there may not be a glut of, let's say, young, well-qualified, wannabe real estate portfolio earners who want to stay with you for 20 years and turn over mortgages every 5 years. There's not a whole lot of those about. I'll probably grant you that one. But there is an untapped resource of some kind of client somewhere, and it's just up to you to work out where they are, where they're hanging out, how they want to be reached, and when you can reach them, what's your story for it, for them dealing with you rather than somebody else. But victims think that there's not enough to go around. They think that the pie is only as big as it is. And the fact of the matter is, the pie is plenty big enough for everyone who wants to add value, and you know, quite rightly, it's not very big for those who can't add value. So, you know, there is no such thing as scarcity. There's only scarcity within a very narrow frame of mind. And also, scarcity leads to fear, and fear leads to freezing. And being frozen, you know, I know you'll agree, it doesn't lead itself to dynamic action if you're locked up. So, let's recap. There's this line in life where that we can put problems on, and we can then choose to deal with them either as a victor or as a victim. And let's face it, it really sucks when you work out, or somebody else points out to you by saying you're living below the line, that, hey, you really are actually responsible for your own situation, and it's a bad situation. And it really, really sucks that you're going to have to take ownership for fixing it, and nobody else is going to come and fix it for you. But that's the reality. And, you know, if your best friend would point it out to you, then let's start pointing it out to each other. You're living below the line, let's get above the line. You know, it's a fact that you're temporarily seeking this easy way out. And it's not a judgment. We all live below the line from time to time. We should thank people for pointing this out to us, because it means that we get up above the line faster. We can get on with dealing with our problems faster without wallowing in the situation. But it is tough. Let's move on. We see this around us every day, and so much so, it's so insidious that we kind of step over it. Let's look at some examples. Now, that's a Vancouver skyline there, and I mentioned that I live in Vancouver. We're on the edge of a rainforest here. North and West Vancouvers are actually in a rainforest. But what's a typical subject of conversation between October and, let's say, June? How much it rains here. Well, go figure. Right? It's called physics. what happens when cold air rises on the mountains. You know, we choose to live here by the mountains for all sorts of reasons, and then we complain about things that we totally cannot impact. So, but that's the thin end of the wedge. Same when we listen to what's going on in the economy, or people tell me, you made me feel sad. Well, whoa, these are all victim mentalities that have become so ingrained in our sort of vernacular and the way we speak in this culture that we don't realize that we're allowing people to talk like a victim around us, and we're not picking them up and saying, you know, take responsibility. If you don't like living in Vancouver, if you don't like the weather, you've got a choice. Move to the prairies, move to San Diego, you know, do something about it, or don't. Except, you know, you don't have to, it isn't a problem. The weather isn't a problem because you can't do anything about it. So this stuff's around us every day, and you know, if we are around people too much, or allow ourselves to be around people too much, blame us for how they feel, and who are constantly reading the news and sucking up bad karma from that, then we're going to have a hard time feeling like a victor all the time. But what if we spent more time around these kind of people? You know, I've got a plan. This is the way we can do it. You know what? It might look like a bad situation, but the opportunity is that we can do this, right? And I know that we can do it because we've done it before, or it's been done before. We've seen what somebody else has done. We know what their results are, and we can work out what their beliefs and actions were. Okay, if you hang out and you create a culture in your office that's much more like this, and much more victim-oriented, and doesn't stand for any of the victimhood, then your results are going to be drastically different. How much more energetic would you think you'd feel working in an office that looks like that than an office that's full of that? So let's get specific. How can you use this in your business? So I want you to go through an example now. Pick one of these that's on here, or maybe you've got one that's tattooed on your heart that's a problem for you right now. I want you to pick one that makes you feel actually quite queasy. This isn't supposed to make you feel, be a nicey exercise. I want you to think of that problem that keeps you awake at night, or makes you think actually you're going to be sick when you really focus on it. And now write down the description of the problem. So, for instance, I have no idea where my next commission is coming from, and I've got a baby due in 3 months' time. Something like that makes you go, whoa! Now look at your sheet. And actually, yeah, maybe if people want to chip in on the box on the right, if you want to sort of contribute what one of your problems is, then feel free to do that. That would be good. Now look at your sheet on the victor-victim model and remind yourself that you're going to prove this particular problem, okay, and be proactive about it. Think of somebody who's got better results than you in this area, so somebody who isn't hurting for commissions next month. What actions have they taken? Think about what thoughts they were thinking when they took those actions previously and what their underlying belief is. And then copy that belief. Okay, so here's the process. Identify the challenge. Remind yourself that you're going to be a victor. It'd be great if you had all this up on your desk, a handwritten victor-victim thing right in front of you. Then find somebody who's got better results than you. Just understand what they did differently. Think about what thoughts they might have. Work out what they believed, and then take action and copy them. And believe me, it's not that difficult to work out what somebody else believed. And if nothing else, just trust your innate ability to assume somebody else's sort of persona for a while and go, right, if I'm doing this, what am I believing? And 99% of the time, you're going to be pretty much spot on. So that's something that you can do after we do it now, but also when we've finished. Remember, results, actions, thoughts, beliefs. Beliefs, thoughts, actions, results. It's just the way it is. So here's some suggested actions for you to take away. If you are a broker owner, coach your team in this terminology. Talk about above the line, below the line. Get really into the victor-victim model, because if you can cut out the victimhood, then you start getting much more proactive actions. Use the common language within Verico. We use it within Focal Point, and it's very, very effective. Welcome feedback on your attitude. If somebody says you're living below the line or being below the line in the moment, welcome it, thank them very much, and move on. It shows enough that they care. And catch yourself equally as much being above the line and acknowledge it as you do below the line. If all you do is pick yourself up when you've been below the line, it becomes just like a whip, and it hurts. But if you catch yourself and reward yourself being a victor, then it reinforces a positive behavior. And be as interested in the beliefs that cause the results as the results themselves. In this culture, it's all about what have you done for me lately? Let's look at the results. Let's look at the results. But you want to play the long game. And if you know that with a suite of really powerful beliefs, you're going to win whatever game it is that you're playing, play the long game and don't expect it all to be a bed of roses in the short term. So I'm going to pause now for a little while and just see who has questions. There's a lot to take in. I've kind of compressed two fundamentally important principles into about 45 minutes there. And I'm sure that there's somebody there who's saying, yeah, but that doesn't kind of jive for me, or how would I apply it in this situation? So if you want to chip in some questions, then please fire them in, and Pin and Mike will handle them. Mike, were there any questions during the presentation?
Rupert, I've got one here on my end. It's Sean here. A few people have asked for you to put the screen up of the actual process steps slide back up so they can write those down. Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, sure. There we are.
Appreciate that. It's fabulous. We'll give everyone a couple seconds to put some questions in here. I've been sitting here listening, and I can tell you, I mean, in my sales role, I 100% agree with all the things you said, and I've been both. From the past, I've been the victim and moved to the victor, but it's easy to get stuck down there and not realize it's you until you really open your eyes. And I think if everyone took some time over the next couple of weeks to really digest and think and review those steps, I know it's I can reflect even my own personal life now and in the past, and where there's moments where I probably could be a little bit different and better in my thinking. So a really well done job, Rupert. Is there any other questions that some people could offer up to Rupert to answer?
Nothing immediate. Sean, I just want to make a point there, and you bring up a great point. Nobody lives above the line 24/7. Absolutely nobody. No matter how successful they are, they fall below the line from time to time and have a little wallow and have a little play down there in the mud, and then they get back up again. So I don't want anybody to go away from this thinking, oh, man, I caught myself being a victim 3 times this week or 3 times today. I must be a victim. It's not about that. It's just, hey, we've now got some terminology. Let's become a victor, and that's really important. So thanks for making that note, Sean. It's not about eradicating or never being a victim. It's about just being there less. Thank you.
Question for me. I guess I'm looking through the process here, Rupert, and number 6. What might they believe? I mean, give me an example, because oftentimes if you're in a rut in a situation, you're feeling challenged, and you want to feel positive about it, and you know it's a challenge, and you want to do it differently, but sometimes you just kind of like, what's your thought process that you might go through to say, well, what does that successful person do? Because I think that's sometimes a challenge.
And I think that it takes a little bit, finding a bit of quiet time for yourself to really go and imagine yourself being that person, and think about what could they possibly have believed that would have done that. So for instance, if you're a new a relatively new mortgage agent, or let's say you're also a more established agent, and you've just seen your people coming past you, and you used to be a superstar, but now other people are taking over, and they're sort of eating your dinner, so to speak. What is it that they're believing about things like social media or the modern way to sell mortgages that you haven't adopted yet? They may believe that social media is a great way to touch people and to have a meaningful dialogue with people, even though it's electronic and it feels to an older person a little bit impersonal. You believe that you've got to get out there and press the flesh and meet people face to face 5 times. They're believing they've got to touch them 15 times on the web, and that's the same result. So hopefully that's an example about what somebody else might be believing about a tool or a new process it's working for them. I'm not doing it. What am I believe? I believe it's a waste of time. I believe it's impersonal. I believe it's whatever. and I have to say, I'm using these examples from personal experience. it's taken me a long time to get on board with social media, but now I'm a proponent of it. But I'm also 6-8 months behind where I could have been if I'd have believed it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an all right example?
Yeah, that's interesting. There is a question here, and maybe it's along the same tune here a little bit, but it says often many brokers are independents. They're alone. They work from home. They don't interact with a lot of successful people. And so, the question is, what if I don't get the exposure to see some of these positive examples? I think you kind of answered it there, but I don't know if there's anything you can elaborate on there.
Well, here's the really cool thing, Sean. That's a great question. Whoever asked that. You can make it up. You can think, right, what are the results that I want to have? What actions would I need to take for that? What would I need to think? And therefore, what would I have to believe? Right? And you can have conversations. I mean, this is a whole kind of side thing, but you could have conversations with an imaginary avatar of your ideal mortgage broker or broker agent or whatever it is that you're aspiring to be. You just have this person in your mind and ask them what they would do, and it's uncanny how accurate you are in terms of diagnosing what you need to believe. And then comes like, well, how the heck do I believe it? Well, you go back to this affirmations and the repeat it to yourself. This is what I believe. This is what I believe. This is what I believe. Because you've drawn it out and you know why it's important that you believe it, and you find ways to reinforce that belief. So even if you're not interacting with anybody who you can hold out as a paragon of virtue, there, make it up, and believe me, it's still just as effective.
Interesting. I know. Good answer. And I know from our point, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to attend a lot of the different conferences our associations have, and I know there's always mixed feelings on some of these conferences, whether it's an association or a Verico conference, or talking to our people, or using our Verico tools, etc. But you go to some of these events. There's so many successful people at all these events, and I've been very fortunate to meet many of them and introduce myself to some. And it's amazing. The more successful people I've met, the more successful they are, the more giving they seem to be at sharing. If you ask the question, well, how did you get from here to there? What worked? And those are the people that seem to be very giving and opening. Or if I buy you lunch, would you come sit for an hour and let me ask you questions? And I've done that in the past, and it works really, really well. So if you're out there and alone, you'll be surprised that the successful people in our industry, at least from what I've exposed to, are extremely giving on helping those that ask, because not many people ask.
And Sean, I totally back that up. That's exactly how it is within Focal Point too. And I think that the point is that people aren't born successful. Everybody knows how difficult it is to become successful and sustain success and all the effort that's required. And they like nothing more than to be given the opportunity of helping somebody else who wants it. So yeah, exactly. Successful people are incredibly giving, and if you can find 100 of them at a conference, then it makes sense to go to them for sure.
Someone else just asked if we could put up the approved and Ben slides again. I guess didn't have a chance to write it down. Is there a possibility we could flip to that real quick? And just so everyone on the call does know that probably most likely tomorrow we will be sending an email out to the network just saying this call was being held again, and there'll be a link to the video. This has all been recorded, and it'll be housed in our Verico Academy. So you'll be able to log in and watch this over and over again, write down anything you may have missed, as well as just pass this on to your colleagues within the Verico network. A question, I don't know if you're seeing these questions on your end, so I'm just going to throw them over to you, Rupert, but I think this is a real good one, because I know I've had this in my life. How do you cure procrastination?
You don't. You're just really conscious of what you're procrastinating on and what you're not procrastinating on, and it's perfectly all right to procrastinate. Just do it on really low value items, and don't procrastinate on the high value items. And that just comes from really appreciating what your vision is, what it's going to take to be successful, put the things in priority order, and do the biggest things first. So, anybody who thinks that they're going to get rid of procrastination is setting off on a fool's errand, because there's always going to be things that you can't do, right? So let's get that out of the way. You're just going to make sure you find the time, block the time in, or block time out, whichever way you look at it, put the time in your diary in blocks that you are disciplined at sticking to. This is when I'm going to be making my calls. This is when I'm going to be networking. This is when I'm going to hive off time to deal with the applications that I've landed. I'm not taking new calls. I'm not taking drop-ins. I'm not doing coaching in these times. So it's we have this thing called block scheduling when we deal with coaching clients, and it's one of the first things that most of us get to is, let's get some control of our diaries and have a closed door policy for 90% of the time. Not saying we don't meet people, but we are blocked out in these times when we're not doing really, really important stuff.
Great.
And Sean, I just wanted to very quickly, on this slide we've got up here, remember the S is for success, not scarcity. Scratch out scarcity and put success in there, please.
Great. Now, do you find it's valuable? I know I have, but again, more to you is changing your environment. Sometimes I'll walk to a coffee shop or sit in a boardroom where my computer and phone aren't because I have a tendency to want to answer my phone or answer my emails. Is the environment change helpful, or I guess it's just on each independent?
Yeah, I think it's each their own, but you make a really good point about turning your phone off and things. It's very easy. You'll know in sales, you get in the habit early on in your career of just being desperate for the phone to ring, and then something suddenly switches, and you don't want the blooming phone to ring because you're too busy, kind of thing. But you've become addicted to that ring or the email or something of keeping busy and being stimulated. And again, it comes down to this blocking time off. Look, I'm doing some-so's application now. I cannot afford, and they can't afford for me to be distracted. I've got voicemail, I've got email, I'll get back to people. And one of the things that I don't have it currently now because I haven't worked out how to set it up on my new email, and it'll also respond at saying, look, I'm only going to respond to my emails at 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock. If it's urgent, call me in the meantime or text me or something. They've got to have an emergency cord. But I'm not going to take calls, or I'm not going to answer emails unless it's at 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And I never get people calling me because generally the emails that I get are information only, or it can wait till the evening or whatever. So it's that, again, clearing. Yes, I get that, if you want to get up and out of the office, then you're not going to get people knocking on the door, changing the environment, going for a walk, all that sort of stuff. But turning off the distractions is absolutely key too.
Great. Well, let's see. I don't know if anyone else has any further questions at all. Rupert, I really, truly did enjoy that. And at Verico, we're excited about the upcoming. Every other week, you're going to have a session like this, and again, they're all going to be very different and apply directly to your business or directly it can be globally within your life. And we hope you all take some time over the next 2 weeks to not just jump back into your business and say, I watched this for an hour, but sit down and find some quiet time, block some time, as Rupert said, and really think about your situation and think about what you just talked about and how can you implement some of these steps to further increase your business and your business. Rupert's got some takeaways here, so I'll let you. I thought that was your last slide, Rupert. My apologies. I'll let you clear that up.
Well, no, but perfect segue again, Sean. Thank you. But you're right. I mean, people will get most out of these sessions when they don't just go straight back to their inboxes now or their answer phone messages. They take some time, go grab yourself a cup of coffee, and ask yourself, knowing what I now know, or knowing what I know now, as is written up there, what am I going to do differently? I'm going to catch people being below the line and put them back above the line. I'm going to stop, or I'm going to catch myself. What am I going to stop doing? I'm going to stop bitching about the weather. What am I going to stop doing? I'm going to stop wasting time in useless networking meetings where I'm just hoping that I'm going to bump into somebody. I'm going to start investing my time in more high-quality networking. But what are three things I'm going to continue doing? Because we all do stuff really well, and hopefully in today's content, you'll have said, yeah, you know what, that resonates with me because I do that. Well, great. Write down the 3 things that you're really good at and remind yourself to do them. And I was chatting with a guy yesterday. He says he goes back through diaries of stuff he used to do when he was a junior sales guy. He goes, I don't do that anymore. Why not? So let's remind ourselves what's really important in our business and continue doing it. And finally, we mentioned this before, but if you want to email us at Verico at focalpointcoaching.com, we'll send you the 10 keys to business success. And it's this really great workbook which will take you again to the next level of beyond where you can see right now. It's 10 steps, work in business. It'll work on your career if you're an agent without necessarily a business per se, although we look at you guys as business owners in and of yourselves too. But whether you're a broker or an agent, this 10 keys, it's just 10 pages. It's very, very easy. It's printable. Ask for it, and it's another tool you can use to help. So that's my last slide, Sean.
Well, I do appreciate it. Really did enjoy it. And again, folks, we're going to have a lineup of every other week. You're going to have some great sessions coming in. And someone else had just asked you to go flip back to that last slide there, if you could, of the 3 steps there. The takeaway, if you could, I guess it's the bonus one.
Oh, the bonus one, right? Yeah.
Sorry, the other one there, I believe. Really, really do appreciate this. We hope you guys all implement this. If you find value in this, you have questions or you had some success, let us know. We want to share this. We want to grow this throughout the network. We want you all to grow your business and get some real value. So please email us at communications@verico.ca if you enjoyed this, if you have some comments or testimonials or some success. And someone else is asking for the 3 steps now as well, Rupert, coming in here. Back one slide. But please do share your comments with us. We hope you all enjoy it. We hope to see you next 2 weeks from now. It's always going to be every other Thursday at 10:30 Pacific time. That's 1:30 Eastern time. And this is going to be an ongoing thing. So please share your successes. Please implement this. And again, we appreciate all of your time. And we will talk to you all in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Sean.
Thanks, Rupert.